Hi and welcome back to Classic MGB. Now today we're going to attempt probably the simplest thing you can do on a car. It's an oil and filter change. I know most people do this, but there are new people that will benefit from a little bit of advice. Now, first thing you need, let's decide exactly what we need. Well, you obviously need an oil filter. My car has the normal spin-on type. It's not the more old-fashioned one, so these are a little bit easier to fit, although possibly a little bit more messy because they are actually installed upside down. I need some oil. I use classic motor oil. I tend to buy this from Halfords. It's Como, which is fine. A lot of people use Castrol, but whatever's fine. And the last thing you need, apart from a new washer for your sump plug, is somewhere to drain the oil. Now, if you've got ramps or just a trolley jack with axle stands or something, you can probably use something like this, put it on the ground and the oil will drain into it. But because, as most people that watch this channel know, I've got a ramp, we needed something slightly different. Now, I didn't really want to go to Amazon and pay a lot of money for a fancy thing that they use in workshops. So me and my lad Josh came up with this, which is our homemade drainer. Now, as you can see, it's actually an old Adblue container. We've calibrated it with some water based on the number of litres, so we can have an idea of how many litres come out. But the really clever thing is this bit of plumbing pipe that we managed to find fitted precisely into the neck of the bottle, and a funnel which we've glued securely in place. So the beauty of this is we can adjust the height so that we can make sure the oil drains into it. Now, this is a bit of an experiment though, because we've never actually done this before. So will this bottle actually melt? Will the pipe melt? Will the funnel melt? Who knows? But let's get under the car and find out. Well, we're underneath the car. We have taken it for a run, so the engine oil should be nice and warm. We got it up on the ramp, as you can see, and I've got a 3/4 inch spanner that I'm about to crack the sump plug. Well, wish me luck. Hopefully, the next shot won't be me covered in oil. So here we go. We'll just get the spanner on it and just crack it just so it's enough. And then what I'm going to do is just pull the plug. I've got gloves on. Here it comes. Any minute now. There we go. Whoa. There we go. We've got a little bit of spillage, but it's looking good. Oh yeah. I've got to keep an eye on it. That's the thing. Oh yeah, it keeps spilling out. But I think it's sort of working. I'm just going to let it drain like that. See it gurgling in. It's a little bit of oil spilt on the floor, but that's soon wrapped up by this bit of rag. And it's filling up quite nicely. Now, can I let go of it? That's the question. Well, seems to be holding pretty well there. That seems to be draining quite nicely. Okay, well, that seems to have worked. So what I'm going to do now is let it drain for perhaps 10 or 15 minutes, make sure all the oil's out. Then what I'll do is drop the car down a bit, change the oil filter, put the plug back in, and then we can fill her up with fresh oil. Okay, so while that's draining away, let's have a look at the sump plug. So this is the sump plug itself, and you'll notice it's got a little copper washer on it, and it's called a crush washer, and that's because as you put it on, it crushes. Now, for me, a lot of people do reuse these, but for me, for the sake of a few pence, just put a fresh one on, and then it crushes fresh, and hopefully gives a better seal. So just to get the old crush washer off, we'll just unwind it like that. So there's the old crush washer. Here's a nice fresh new crush washer. So we'll just push that over like that, and that's all ready to go back on the car. Right, so we've now dropped the car down. The drain plug's still out because I'm just thinking there might be a little bit more oil come out when we take the filter off. So pop the bonnet, car down. I'm now going to change the filter. Now this is a little bit tricky, but you can usually grab hold of it and sometimes free it off, and other times you can't, which is where a rather handy little wrench. I found this one really, really useful. It's a sort of wrench that tightens up on itself as you tighten the socket. So we'll just pop that on the filter itself and tighten it hand tight, and pop the socket on, And hopefully that's turning the right way. There we go. And it's turning the wrong way, so that's not good, is it? So it needs to just spin round. There we go. Now, hopefully that should grip quite nicely, and just ease it round. Just enough. Okay, that's coming nice and loose now. It should be hand tight. So grab a bit of blue roll, get your hand underneath if you can. That's spinning off fine. This is where it can get a bit messy. So I'm spinning that off quickly as I can. Get the blue roll underneath and flip it over. There we go. So put that somewhere safe so it's not going to drip anywhere. And now get some blue roll, because there's a bit of excess oil in where the filter was. Now be careful if we've left this quite a while, so the engine oil is quite cool. But if you're doing this straight after you've run, be a bit careful because this stuff can get quite hot. Now, that's not quite enough blue roll, so let's get a bit more blue roll, and we'll just clear up any spare base oil in there. And what we're going to do as well is just check the seal as well, just to make sure there's no sort of kinks or faults on there. But that looks lovely. So now it's just a question of putting the new filter on. So here's my new filter. Now, one of the things you should do to make sure the seal is good is just grabbing a little bit of nice fresh engine oil and just smearing it around the seal, just to make sure you've got a really good seal. And then with this type of filter, it's just a question of popping it over, making sure we avoid all the bits of cable and everything, and then screw it on. Now, hand tight is absolutely fine. You don't want to go any tighter. So there you go, new filter fitted. So we're back under the car just to fit the drain plug back in. It's very simple, just pop it in there. Well, I say simple, it's just a question of getting it to catch nicely. No, it's being a bit awkward. There we go. In it goes. Now, do it up to finger tight and then just nip it up. Don't forget, remember that crush washer. We just want to crush it a little bit. So let's get that on there and just give it perhaps half a turn, maybe a little bit more. There we go. Just crush that up nice and tight. Okay, so the penultimate step is to fill us back up with oil. So undo the oil cap. I'll put that somewhere sensible so it doesn't fall into the engine, somewhere like there. Now, one of the things that's interesting is to work out how much oil you've taken out and therefore how much you should put in, because it's almost as bad to have too much oil as too little. So according to our very clever, well, not so clever, our calibration system, we've taken about 3.5 litres out. Now the book says it's with an oil cooler, it should have about 4 litres. We haven't bothered to empty the oil cooler. I don't tend to bother with that because it's a bit of hard work and actually it doesn't hold that much oil. So bottom line is I don't put it straight from the can. I use a jug to fill up, so I know exactly how much has gone back in. Now I know this jug has got 2 litres in it, so I know I can put all of this in quite safely. Right, so that's 2 litres. So what I'm going to do now is fill this up and then pour another litre or so in and then start checking with the dipstick. Right, that's about 3 litres. So what I'm going to do is just let it settle for a minute or two and then try the dipstick to see where we are on oil level. Let's just have a look to start with. Yeah, so it's... Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just below the minimum, so we'll leave it a couple of minutes and then come back to it and see what happens. Well, I've just checked the dipstick again, and it's just a fraction under the minimum, so I reckon another ½ litre or so should do it. There we go. A little bit more. A little bit more, there we go. As I say, it's very important not to put too much in, maybe a fraction more. There we go. And I'll just pop that lid back on there. Grab my trusty blue roll. Just see where we are on the dipstick now. Yeah, that's coming up nicely. So I try to put mine not on the top, just off the top layer, because this engine does burn a bit of oil, so I like to have a little bit in hand. But I reckon that's the job done. So the last thing to do is to run the engine and just make sure it's not leaking. So that's what we'll do next. Okay. So I've checked and switched the car on and waited till the oil pressure climbed. So we've got good oil pressure of about 60 pounds, which is good. So now what we'll do is check for any leaks. That all looks fine underneath. Yep, it doesn't idle very well when it's cold. So we'll just switch the engine off. So there you go. That's an oil change on an MGB. Now, one final thing I'm going to do is just pop the bonnet down and drive around the block and just double check the oil just to make sure that there's enough in there, but I'm pretty certain there is. So really simple job. Pretty much any owner should be able to do it. If you haven't got a ramp, you can use a trolley jack with axle stands, of course, so it's always safe. Never ever get underneath a car based on just a trolley jack. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like, give it a share, and it'd be great if you could subscribe to the channel, because everything helps in terms of the YouTube algorithm and all the rest of it. As always, many thanks for watching, and take care.